City Matters.
Welcome back here to HMTV with my special guest, Jimmy Henke. In our first episode, he spoke about his earliest years in Sound Beach and Port Jeff, and a lot of his time now in the military in South Vietnam, and some of his battlefield experiences. Mr. Henke, can you talk about the Battle of Concordia?
Absolutely. So, on June 19th, 1967, we boarded the Navy craft that were going to take us up the rivers. And enemy concentration was really heavy out there. We didn't know how many there were, but we were the last to know anything. We were loaded on the troop carriers, and an hour and a half, 2 hours later, the sun was coming up. We traveled that night and up these narrow tributaries off of the Sangmito River and into the jungles and rice paddies. There was only one way in the Delta, by boat, or if you were chopper driven, you went in by helicopter.
How many soldiers were you with?
My company was 130 strong. Short men, could have been give a few, take a few. When you're wounded or you're killed, it takes time to get replacements.
So you guys weren't at 100% capacity?
No, we were not at 100% capacity.
How many companies were sent in? Just yours, or was there?
Alpha Company, my company, Charlie Company, and Bravo Company were within, I would say, a mile of each other, quarter mile, and we had to move during the day to a certain amount of clicks to where we would have the enemy in front of us, and we would close in and try and wipe them out. It didn't work out that way.
So now you're going into this area. How does the enemy come into contact with your company?
With Alpha Company alone, we walked from, let's say, 7 o'clock in the morning, rice paddies, never entered the woods line or the jungles, and we ran into no enemy at all. They say it was 10:57, according to the colonel up in the helicopter, when he asked Captain Meaner, who was our company leader, his first time out in the jungle with a company of soldiers, and he really didn't know what was going on. And he said, "Do you want me to pepper the area of the jungle before you guys get close to it, coming across the rice paddies?" And he made a big mistake and said, "No, it looks very quiet," which was a key.
It's too quiet.
Too quiet. And Colonel Tutwiler up above said, "You sure?" He said, "Yeah." Our point people got within 40 to 50 yards away, and it was an L-shaped ambush that we walked into.
Yeah, they were waiting for you.
They were waiting. And complete chaos broke out.
Now, you were in the rice paddies?
Our platoon, our squad and platoon was walking across these rice paddies, and we were out in the open, and the enemy was dug in the woods line.
Now, were you guys on any forms of roads that were in the rice paddy, or you were just in the mud?
There were no roads, only paths, and the rice paddies were by themselves with dikes that separated each rice paddy where they could flood it. When the tide came up, it was like at home, the tide came up and down, and they could flood each rice paddy. So in those rice paddies were landmines. So a lot of our guys walked the dike on top, which you weren't supposed to. And then when we were starting to head to the woods line, he turned down any gunships coming in or artillery or air support to hit that area before we went through it. Well, we walked into the ambush, and the guys up front just fell like they were cutting down weeds.
Just got mowed down.
Mowed down, and we're looking, and you were so surprised that this happened.
And this is at almost, what, 11 o'clock in the morning?
This was just shy of 11 o'clock in the morning, and everybody hit the mud, hit the water, you were prone on your bellies all day long.
So now you guys are fighting, you have casualties, you're probably separated from each other to a certain extent.
You were.
Now, what was the enemy doing? Were they firing all day? Were they attacking all day?
The enemy, we found out, was almost 20-1. They were superior to us. They said there was a battalion in the area. We were just 3 companies of 100 and some men apiece. And Charlie Company ran into it, Bravo Company, and Alpha, who got hit the hardest.
You guys walked into a hornet's nest.
Walked into a hornet's nest. And there was no trying to crawl up and pull those guys back that were bleeding to death. They bled to death throughout the afternoon. Some were hit once, twice, 3 times as they tried to crawl towards a perimeter that we had set up, trying to get away from.
What was your job on that day?
I was a rifleman, and you couldn't aim your weapon. If you aimed your weapon and put your head up, you were dead.
That was it.
The enemy had a field of fire out of the bunkers and the spider holes they had dug in front of the woods line. They could see us, we couldn't see them.
Yeah, they were at sheer advantage.
Absolutely.
And you're vulnerable for how long did the battle go on? For about a day, day and a half?
It went on from just shy of 11 o'clock in the morning up until dark, and then through the night, sporadic, but the Air Force was dropping flares so we could see if they were going to overrun us at night. And our worst enemy was ourselves, because we knew crawling out there and bringing some of the bodies back, but some of our guys were heroes. We had the Navy boat, was a medical boat, came in, and 3 corpsmen, Navy-trained corpsmen, and for Marines and Navy, and we had medics that were good, but the corpsmen were damn near doctors. The 3 of them went out and crawled out in front of us while we gave them cover by shooting over their heads at the woods line. They tried bringing the bodies out, but you're talking about 2-3 football fields to the canal where the boat was waiting to take care of our wounded.
An impossible situation.
Impossible situation. So the 2 corpsmen just wouldn't go out there anymore.
Can I ask you this question where that captain was offered air support? He doesn't take it. The company gets hit hard. Did he ever receive any type of punishment or anything like that you know of?
He was relieved of his command after the battle. And the general actually gave him another command 4 months later.
Is that because they were running out of officers? Or
Officers were dying. In a battle, the enemy was trained to get your medics, kill your RTOs, kill your machine gunners and your officers.
And the 9th Infantry it's a proud fighting. I mean, its history goes back. And so I'm sure they couldn't have been happy that he was actually reminded, we'll give this to you. There's no problem doing this. And
yeah.
So, all right, so now what was the night like? It was just, you had to stay awake? Couldn't sleep. What would the enemy do if they got in between the lines there? What were they looking to do?
The enemy, during the night, when the flares would go out, and the planes would come back and drop more, but it was a lot in between the darkness. They actually crawled out, took the weapons, took the boots off our guys, took anything they wanted, the helmets, and left them laying there, which we didn't find till the next day.
And would they kill guys that were wounded? They wouldn't offer them any quarter or anything like that?
All you heard during the night was screaming. And he today, many of us say, why didn't we do more? But doing that would be committing suicide, trying to get out there and help them.
It'd be more losses.
More losses. We knew what was happening.
And then you would have been completely overrun the next day.
We would have. It just wouldn't have worked. There was no way they could get relief to us to take the pressure off us. And during the night and the day, all you heard was these poor guys out there screaming for help.
Were you running out of ammunition?
Yes.
At one point did you say, I have to?
We had to conserve.
Conserve, right?
We actually, during the night, the guys closest to us that were wounded or dead, we went out, got what they had, told them, play dead, do not try to follow us back to the perimeter. Took all their ammunition and hand grenades. And even some of the wounded that were with us took up a rifle and were willing to die for what we were there for.
Now, were you able to eat at this time?
No, we didn't eat all day, night. And next day, when we brought back to the company.
What about water-wise? Did you guys have?
We ran out of water, food. There was no food to eat. You just couldn't eat anyway. You were on your prone. You were laying in a prone position all day and night.
So you're exhausted. You're running on adrenaline.
Yeah.
The enemy's in front of you, and certainly a better position. You're running out of ammunition.
Right.
And how do you know that? Because you have to go to the wounded and the dead.
Yeah.
Utilize their stuff, right? Their resources.
Whatever they had.
And when did you realize that the battle either had turned or that you were getting some sort of help the next day?
The one company, Charlie Company, was told, get to Alpha, take the pressure off them, but they ran into their own problems on the way. So night came and they couldn't get to us. They lost 11 and 25 dead, 25 wounded. We lost triple that during the day. We knew we were in big trouble, and my machine gun, Tony Spradling, he saved my life more than once that year. He said to everybody, grab those hand grenades when you run out of ammunition. Start throwing the grenades when they're coming at us, because they were going to overrun us that night. And he said, save one for yourself.
Yeah, there's no catching you alive.
They're going to kill you.
Yeah.
He said, it's not a tea party. They're going to kill us.
What did they do if you had tattoos that were visible? What would they do to soldiers?
The PBR boats that ran alongside of our big heavy steel crafts with the drop ramps, they had a boat get hung up on the marshlands out there. Tide went down, and they shot up everybody on that boat. They weren't far from us, and a fella named Ford, an ensign on the boat, because the Navy ran all the boats up and down the rivers. All his guys were dying. He ran up on the embankment with a machine gun, and they killed him. They grabbed his body, they hung him, and they cut his tattoos off. They named the USS Ford after him.
After him.
The Navy did. We weren't always close to that. It would happen during that season of combat. They decommissioned that boat years ago, and I read about it and I saw it was such a touching thing to think that that family would watch the boat be decommissioned, but the ships get old.
So now the theory with the grenades, the instruction with the grenade is don't give them the satisfaction.
You're going to take your own life with it.
Yeah.
Save one for yourself.
That's a tough thing at 21, 22 years old to...
I had 8 guys 18 years old. I mean, they were brave. They were as brave as somebody 30 years old who was in life and lived a good life. They were like, you got it, Sarge.
Now, the colonel who offered the assistance, the air assistance, was he over the battlefield at night? Was he directing?
He was up day and night.
And were they trying to hit some of their positions?
During the night, in order to keep them off us, even during the day, they brought in artillery, which came so close to us. You could, with the thousands of bullets coming our way, you figured there was one of them with your name on it. the artillery was coming in so close to us, they had to readjust their fire because it was right in our faces, and possibly could have hurt our own guys with shrapnel.
And that goes to show you how close to hand-to-hand combat
They could
you
have pulled
guys-
up by the belt. They could have pulled us in, the enemy. The gunships went down. 2 gunships and 3 slicks went down trying to get the wounded. 3 or 4 rice paddies away from us.
Where would have air support, reinforcements, the air cav, where would they have come from?
The Tonsanute Air Base is where the air support came from. Some of them came from the carriers out in the Red China Sea. You could see, I have a picture I'm going to give you, Rich. You could see the jet flying, a quarter mile away from us. You could see his head in the cockpit. I mean, it was open fields, and dropping the 650-pound bombs.
Very low level.
Very low level. You could see the top of his head. And as they came closer to us, within 1,000 feet, 2,000 feet or more, they would drop their load, and you put your head down.
Yeah, because you're not sure
where it was
with
going.
their coordinates. You're that close.
They
never
could
know.
be off.
Yeah.
And take out you and me. And the shrapnel from those bombs would hit down in a rice paddy and sizzle. And I saw guys with shrapnel in them.
Now, we have this book right here that's right in front of us. I'm going to hold it up. Okay, Duty, Honor, and Sacrifice.
Yeah.
This book here is where your battle, your account.
My battle is in there. Ralph Christopher wrote this book. He was in the Navy along with us, and he wrote this book and contacted everybody because you write a book, you put somebody's name in it, they could sue you. He contacted us, and he wrote stuff in there that was, right to the T. It's a great book.
It's a difficult thing, finding everyone, getting approval, getting the story straight.
Yes.
Right?
He was sued.
The accounts.
He was sued by one of the guys, and they wanted the money for that he was giving to the VA from the book.
Wow.
He died last year, so the book is back in publication.
Now, the cover of the book is the naval vessels.
It's the naval vessels going up those canals that you see. And the enemy was in the canal, on the side of the canals in the woods line shooting at the boats. And the Navy was on top. They were every bit of a combat soldier as we were.
And they only had so much protection.
Protection, they were up there with machine guns.
A lot of these boats were wood and steel.
Yeah.
And
these were all steel. The fiberglass boats were the PBRs. They blew them out of the water.
How fast would these boats go?
These were 7 knots, which was slow. PBRs could fly down the river like you and I skiing out on Long Island.
They can get into trouble, but get out of it too, right?
Yeah, get out of it. Yeah.
All right, so now you end up coming out of this battle. Did they debrief you? Did they ask you?
No, not at all. We were...
So this is more of a debriefing for you so many years later.
Years later when Ralph wrote the book. And that battle is in there on page 170. Everything about how it came down, how Jim Henke, Tony Spradling, so-and-so guys picked up their machine guns. You picked the machine guns up because those guys were dead. My RTOs were dead. Our medics, half of them are dead. Lieutenants, everybody was down.
I looked up the battle. I saw some records that they believe that about 255 either North Vietnamese and Viet Cong, or maybe a combination of both, were killed.
They died that day.
During the battle there.
Yeah.
So they paid a little bit of a price.
They paid a price, but they
knew you guys were there though too.
Yeah, they peeled off during the night. The forward air controller that was up in a helicopter of his own asked Colonel Tutwiler, "Do you want me to call in a broken arrow?" Broken arrow meant they're going to bring everything in. Everybody's going to die. Trying to save us, but they're bringing it in on top of everybody. He said, "No, I have soldiers still alive." We lost 32 dead that day, 76 wounded, and a handful of us that made it without any injuries.
Now that's where the enemy specialize. Try to hit you hard and then just move, right?
That's get you down a trail another time.
Get you another day.
Yeah.
And that was a little bit of a different weapon, different war that we were used to.
We were not trained.
Used to fighting.
That next morning, as the sun came up, we looked out at the carnage, and the carnage was terrible. Charlie Company was coming, dropped to their knees and cried, watching.
Did you take anything from that battle, like where you saw the enemy? Was there like maybe a patch that you took off him, or a knife, or anything, or you just left it alone?
Not that battle. Another battle, we confiscated an AK-47, and you had to turn them in. But this was an antique weapon to us. We wanted to keep it forever and have it as an antique. Back in our base camp, they would bring us in to dry out and then put you out for 2 more weeks. You come back in, your skin was shriveled, you had leeches all over you. We took it apart and put it in a TV and sent it home.
And years later, you were able to fire it.
Years later, my buddy, Carmine Messerino, who died 2 years ago, he brought it out to my town yard, closed up the town yard, went into the pit, and we fired it.
And had a little bit of fun. And all of a sudden, being an older guy and having a family and all these responsibilities, what do you remember? Years ago, you start shedding some of those years. And
yeah, it's a fact, Rich, yeah. And that gun, I don't know where it is today because Carmine said he was going to hold on to it. I didn't want it anyway.
Sure.
It was too many memories, and he was pretty good, Carmine. He built a plant out on a Lilco plant out there. That's how he found me in Rocky Point one day.
So many years after the war.
Right? I patched him up. He was wounded next to me. I patched him up, and he went out in a helicopter giving me the peace sign.
I'm sure when you guys saw each other, you had big hugs and laughs. And
not many guys say, I love you, brother.
Yeah.
But we said it even back then.
Yeah, you meant it too.
You were a brother.
Yeah. So now towards the end of your tour, you end up in Saigon, right? And what were some of your responsibilities there? Now you're out of the field, you're out of the water, you're out of the really extreme southern part of the country.
What happened with Tet Offensive was right around the corner. And they brought us out of the jungles and up to the Y Bridge. And the 9th Division was holding the enemy from getting into the air base by the Air Force, Tan Son Nhut, Long Ben, and Saigon, which they wanted to disintegrate. They got in there anyway from other directions. But our job was to keep the enemy from getting across that Y Bridge. Because once they blew the bridge...
What was the nickname of that bridge there? The White Bridge?
The White Bridge.
White Bridge.
Sorry, White Bridge, right. White. And we secured that. The enemy came out of the rice paddies, out of the jungles in droves.
All at once?
All at once. And it was a Turkish...
Coordinated, right? All the towns, villages, cities, the embassy, the airports.
They were everywhere.
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 And they were motivated to... right? To kind of cause a little divide within the military and then the war effort and everything, right?
I still had 4 or 5 months to go. So then I was back out in the fields before you knew it. We pulled operations again off the, some of them we pulled from choppers.
What's the toughest time, when you get there or when you're close to being done? Where I have a month, a couple of weeks, days. Short timer.
When I first got there, you were always nervous. You were scared. And then the adrenaline would run in the battle, and there was no more being scared. You were at the point where there were times where you just said, it doesn't matter, we're going to keep walking. The snipers would shoot at it. You just kept walking.
Just kept on going.
It didn't matter whether you lived or died. You got so disgusted.
Your last day there, what was that like?
I was told I was going home, and the rest of the guys in the field came back in. I was in for a week. I had hurt myself, And those guys came back in out of the field, and thank God we saw each other and went home on the same plane. We were shipped into Saigon and then to the Long Binh Air Base, where we took a nice, I think it was a Northeast Airlines plane, stewardess, and we had
Some comforts.
little comforts of booze.
Some spirits, right?
Yeah. One quick thing is John Van Dren went through training with me. Every day I'd hit in the field, John, you all right? I'm okay, Henke, I'm okay. It got to a point where John couldn't say that anymore. He was cracking.
So now you come home, you end up at Fort Dix, which is great because even though it's a little bit of a ride, you're closer to home.
Yeah.
What did your parents buy you to like welcome you home?
I wrote a note home. The new Corvette was changing to a shark body in '68. I said, I'll pay you back, Mom, I promise.
The motorhead takes over now,
The
right?
motorhead took over.
Yeah.
I was out of the battle, almost out, short timer, and it was sitting at home waiting for me when I got there.
What color was it?
British racing green.
Looks pretty sharp, right?
And behind it was my hot rod. My dad kept in the garage, pulled that out, and they were both sitting waiting for me.
And you use that to go back and forth
To Fort Dix.
to Fort Dix.
Yeah.
So now you get out of the Army. You have a lot of close, events in the field, battles in the field, and you go back to your town job.
Right.
What was the biggest thing that you remember coming home?
I carried a lot of baggage. I went there with a good attitude, and I came home a different person. And my best friend, my mom told me this, you're just not the same person, but we'll work it out. We didn't know about PTSD back then. They called it shell-shocked for our older veterans.
And there wasn't much help then.
There was no help. They never debriefed us, just sent us home.
And there was no telling you to go up to Northport and talk to somebody. And
Not at all.
now you go back to your job at the town of Brookhaven. What were some of your responsibilities you did going back to your hometown?
I went back to I was driving a big dump truck and payloaders and stuff, and then I had the seniority and I had the diploma to be able to move on, and I became the foreman of Sound Beach, a little bit of Rocky Point, a little bit of Mill Place, and I stayed there for 35 years, working in my own hometown.
Yeah, that you grew up in. And
I grew up in, knew everybody.
And now your grandchildren live in one of the your family houses.
I gave them, actually my son paid my mom's medical bills in a nursing home, and that it was his home.
Wow.
And I took my mom's smaller home down the road by the beach. That's where I am today with my wife.
Now you look at your experiences, it definitely shaped you, right? You're the head of your family, you worked your whole life, you have your grandchildren now, and
Yeah.
you're a big member of VFW Post 6249. You do a lot of good things. We have a PTSD run coming up.
Yeah, yeah, that's a big thing coming up there at the end of the month, yeah.
You've been through some rough times, so you've also,
I've seen it, but I've also had some good memories
Yeah.
of the guys that, most of them are dead now. They're gone. There's not nobody to talk to, but a few on the computer, Billy Terrell and Rocky Graves, and a few of those guys that were with me there. And a lot of them, they don't remember a lot.
And you never lose that sense of camaraderie.
No, you don't.
Never.
I mean, they always hit the liking of anything I post and vice versa.
Before we go, I just wanted to show some pictures that were that Jimmy brought here that his parents had saved. This was the battle here.
This
right?
was the June 19th battle. They opened the Newsday up, and this is what my mother saw at her office at Suffolk County Police Department, and she almost had a coronary herself.
Thousands of miles away.
Thousands of miles away, and never knew if I was one of the 20 or so that was alive. Didn't get hurt. This one come out of Newsday.
And the families had their own torture.
Yeah.
With that,
On
not knowing,
on the
right?
TV every night.
And this is
seeing
here.
this.
Kong wipes out. Company of GIs, 32 killed, 126 hurt. And this is
Alpha Company.
Thursday, June 22nd, 1967.
A few days after the battle, Associated Press sent it out to all these papers. The paper's 58 years old.
Which is amazing. And in New York Newsday, something that we all know.
New York Newsday today.
Right? I mean, your granddaughter was in the paper today for lacrosse. And,
Yeah.
But this is, certainly a different...
A lot of memories.
Different story. So, all right, I'd like to thank Jimmy Henke, okay, Sergeant Jimmy Henke.
Thank you, my friend.
For being here, Bronze Star recipient. You know, I'm going to kind of just hold off on the goodbyes real quick. Here's an interesting story that I probably should have brought up a little bit earlier. You just testified a couple of years back, right, for one of the soldiers that was there to go from a Silver Star to a Medal of Honor.
Yeah.
In front of Congress and...
Yeah. Most of the guys that did from the battle of 19th, this corpsman, Padre Corpsman Raymond Johnson lives in Montana, and I keep in touch with him. He's 94 years old, was in the Navy long before I went in the Army. And he could not only give them last rites out in the field that day, he went to every one of those 76 and kept some of them alive. And then he was shot in the chest himself, went through his Bible and through his vest and into his lungs, and suffered dearly. He got a Silver Star. A year or so ago, they contacted me asking if I'd testify to Congress in the Defense Department. I did, so we're waiting before anything happens to Padre. He's getting old, whether this will happen or not.
It'd be nice if you can get decorated before.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So
he's quite the guy, Rich. You'd love to talk to him.
Sure.
Oh, he's got some stories.
Okay. Jimmy, thanks again for coming down. We're very glad that you made the trip here today, shared some tough
pleasure.
stories. Thank you for your service and welcome home.
Thank you for your service, Rich. Hoorah, Army brother.